What is happening, YouTube? Cowboy here, and now that our initial run of Dark Souls 3 is finished, it is time to start the actual walkthrough of the game. So in this series, we're going to be going through how to beat every boss in the game, as well as showing you guys where all of the key items that you need to pick up are along the way. This series will obviously be filled with spoilers. I just want to put that out there right now, so just so you guys know, if you're watching, things will be spoiled because this is going to be structured as a walkthrough and not a Let's Play. The only other thing I do want to point out is because we are playing on Xbox One and the release patch has not hit yet, we are on regulation version 1.00 instead of 1.01. This actually has the enemy health and damage nerfed very slightly, so it's almost the equivalent of a new game -1, if you will. So to help offset that, we're not going to level our vigor past 20, which is kind of the soft cap on it. And the actual Let's Play of the series, which will be out during release, I ended up going all the way up to 40 and hitting the hard cap, and even then, I was still having some difficulty with enemies, so I think limiting ourselves on vigor will help to offset the regulation version. Either way, with that being said, let's get started.
Yes, indeed. It is called Lothric, where the transitory lands of the Lords of Cinder converge. In venturing north, the pilgrims discover the truth of the old words. The fire fades, and the lords go without thrones. When the link of fire is threatened, the bell tolls, unearthing the old Lords of Cinder from their graves. Aldrich, Saint of the Deep. Farron's Undead Legion, the Abyss Watchers. And the reclusive lord of the profaned capital. Yon the Giant. Only in truth, the lords will abandon their thrones. And the unkindled will rise. Nameless, accursed undead, unfit even to be cinder. And so it is that ash seeketh embers.
I don't think I will ever get tired of that intro. So, I already pre-made the character just to save some time on things. Now we're going to be going with a warrior. For someone that's just starting out the game, I would suggest either a warrior or a knight. The knight's extra armor can help quite a bit, but the warrior, as you can see, we have vigor at 14 and endurance at 12, while the Knight Vigor is at 12 and Endurance is at 11, and we have a little bit more Vitality. So the biggest thing is the Knight, we have a little bit, our Strength and Dex are closer to average, whereas with the Warrior, we have more Strength and a lot less Dex. This is going to be a Strength build. In general, I think that, especially for someone just coming into the Souls franchise, that Strength builds are the better way to go. And then on top of that, having that extra bit of Vigor and Endurance is always helpful when starting out. As for the Burial Gift here, there's a couple different things to consider. I'm going to be going for the Sovereignless Soul just because this will give you 2,000 souls right off the start, and then it's going to help us out to level quite a bit with getting things started off. As for the appearance, as I mentioned, we've already... I don't know, I couldn't get the cheeks right. Tried to make guts, but that's close enough. Anyway, let's get started. So, in this very first episode, we're going to be going through the whole Cemetery of Ash area, the first boss, and then in addition, the Firelink Shrine. Now, as for items of big note here, there's a couple of embers you can pick up a little bit later. On top of that, there's the Ash Estus Flask, and then the Uchi Katana you can get from an NPC when we make our way up towards Firelink Shrine. So, we are going to swing over here to the left, clear things out. These enemies aren't worth much in terms of souls, but we're going to kill them all anyway. It's always good to just go through and kill everything. And if you're new, the little orange areas you see along the ground, such as this, these are your tips. They'll explain different things to you involving the controls for the game. So, especially if it's your first time playing a Souls game, good to read those and get a feel for all the controls. The big thing that I want to mention is in contrast to the other Souls games, the major difference now is that all of the weapons, catalysts, shields, everything of that nature now has what's known as a weapon art. And whereas before we could simply, basically our blue bar has replaced spell usage from Dark Souls 2. This is closer to how things were back in Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1. And that blue bar basically dictates how many times you can use a spell. In addition, it also influences your weapon arts. So to check a weapon art, looking at the weapon here, as you can see we have the skill listed. With the axe, it's Warcry. Let out a Spirited Warcry that temporarily boosts attack. So if we were to two-hand our weapon and then hit the left trigger, we will get that boost. So back here we have the Crystal Beast. Depending on the build you choose to start with, he can be a little tricky. Melee builds do very well against him. Something like a Pyromancer, for example, you don't really have the attack damage outright. I mean, at least I felt like I was having trouble when I was playing as my Pyromancer. Whereas, as you can see, the Warrior with the boosted attack absolutely shredded him, getting the Titanite Scale. Now, Titanite Scales are used later in the game. They are for upgrading your boss weapons. The more important thing is, as you can see, we got quite a hefty amount of souls from killing him right now, and that's going to help us very much so as we make our way into a Firelink Shrine and upgrade for the first time. Now we are going to continue, make a right here. We'll go on up to the bonfire. A couple other items you can grab in this area. There's a firebomb. Your first piece of Titanite that you can grab as well as here. There's our bonfire. Don't really need to rest, but we will anyway, just to top off our health as well as our FP bar there. And on top of that, we now have the rest gesture. So right here, you want to jump down. Jump right at the very edge of the rock. There's our Titanite shard. It's going to be an enemy right here that we can do a plunging attack onto. Plunging attacks are very important in Dark Souls. It may look like it's not going to go off every now and then, but all you really have to do is, as you are falling down, just make sure you are hitting the right bumper, or R1 if you're playing on PlayStation. And what you'll do, you can kind of see it a second ago, at the very last second, right before you would connect with an enemy, you will end up swinging. Now for enemies that block, you can hit forward and right bumper, and that'll kick. It does a guard break, which will put the enemy into a riposte state, where you can then follow up and do big damage to them. Definitely keep that in mind. My first playthrough, I completely forgot about the ability to kick, and needless to say, it would have helped immensely if I had remembered that, because kicking is very, very valuable in this game. Alright, so now we are on to the first boss. We're going to top off our health real fast. This is Index Gunder. As soon as you pull the sword from him, the fight will start. At the same time, as soon as you pull the sword, you can start doing damage. So what we're going to do here is buff our axe, remove the sword, and then as soon as that comes out, we're going to start hitting him. Took a very unfortunate hit there. This boss has rather large sweeping attacks. If you get in close, he can do a good bit of damage onto you. He also has like kind of a shoulder check attack he can do, which you just saw right there. Now when he gets to 50%, there is a phase change where the abyss that's in his back will come out and assist. So do keep that in mind. The best thing to do is once you get him there, take advantage of that to get in big damage. So you should be doing it any second now. Here's the abyss. We're going to get as much damage as you can now, while the abyss is kind of summoning up, as you can see. He has a bit of a vulnerable window right there. While the abyss kind of comes out of his back, we had roughly 5-6 seconds where we could just wail into him, doing as much damage as possible. And right there, that allowed us to take him out before he actually was really able to follow up with that abyss form. So while he can do quite a bit of damage in that state, if you take him out promptly, right when it occurs, you shouldn't have much issue. And then on top of that, you don't need to worry about fighting him in abyss state. So you may now see in the top left corner of the screen, we also have an Ember effect now. Now the Ember effect is the equivalent of Humanity from Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2. It gives us a 20% health boost, and in addition to that, when we're embered, it's much easier to see other people that we can summon. So right here, we did a shield break. As you can see, that lined us up for the easy riposte. That's going to be very helpful against enemies that have spears. In general, anytime you see an enemy with a spear, he's usually going to have a shield as well. So being able to break that shield and follow up will allow for big damage early on, taking out enemies without much issue at all. So as we approach Firelink's shrine up here, a couple things I will mention once we get a little bit further up. We're going to take these guys out first. We're going to go around this way. Well, there's the actual shrine. Before we go into that, we're going to curve around. No, damn it, I keep messing up my path. This path, here we go. And we're going to go not all the way up there, but instead we're going to curve around to the right here first. Got our Ember. Now Embers can only be used when you're in the unkindled state. To elaborate on that, when you are considered unkindled, that is when you don't have the Ember icon in the top left. And during that time, using an Ember will give you the boost to your health. There we go. That's what I wanted. There's our other Ember. Here's the dog. Bad dog. Now we can go get the Uchigatana at this point, but we are going to run in real fast and just light the bonfire. We're also going to spend all the souls we've gotten up until now. So easy thing to make this a little bit faster. We can actually, no, we will put that one on. Anyone that's at 1 we'll put on. And then we'll use the grouped ones with you selected. So between the lizard that we killed and now the boss and the enemies, just now, right? We're just now reaching the first bonfire where we are able to actually spend things, and as you can see, we have a hefty 10,742 souls, which is quite a bit. So we're going to just level up real fast, and then I'll go more in depth into Firelink Shrine. As I mentioned, my vigor won't go past 20, so I'm going to put that there now, and then not have to worry about putting any more points into it for the remainder of the playthrough. Now, if you're playing this on regulation, the 1.01, when it comes out, I would suggest going past 20. Like I said, because the enemies are a little bit weaker on 1.00, we're not leveling past 20, but going up to 40 helps quite a bit. So, now that we have rested the bonfire, we're going to go up here, get the Uchigatana. Now, this enemy can be fairly difficult early on, but if you're running a dex build, you will want to kill him and get his weapon. It's a very good weapon early on. As you can see, our damage is not that high against him, and he's quite fast. And we did manage to cheese him. That's fantastic. So, he just fell off, but he should have dropped the Uchigatana. So what we're going to do, we're going to grab this, get the east-west shield. We're going to go back to the bonfire. Embed the coiled sword. Man, I wish it was that easy making fires in real life. Alright, now when you rest at a bonfire, this will always reset the state of the world. So basic enemies that you've killed will at that point respawn. Certain enemies will not respawn. Some enemies don't respawn at all, such as the guy that had the Uchigatana. But by resting, it should reset his position, and we should be able to pick up our weapon. As we can see, even though we knocked him off the cliff, there it is, lying right there waiting for us. Uchigatana and the Master's Attire. Now, you'll notice that this does not open from the side. That's locked for now. We're going to be going into how to get back there very briefly right now. You're going to need 20,000 souls to access that area. Back there you can get the Firekeeper soul, which is it's important towards one of the endings. It's also important if you want to cure the dark signs, which we'll go into those a little bit later. But entering Firelink Shrine, you can see here we swung over to the right. We're going to go out here. Here is the giant. Anytime that PvP happens, the Seed of a Giant can spawn. You can use those to force enemies in your world to attack invaders. Back here, we have another soul we can get. And here's the gate. So as you can see, it's locked. We can buy the key inside. It costs 20,000 souls, so do keep that in mind. There's also some sets you can get. You basically go through here. You'll run up this area. From there, you can kind of see the bridge up there, and you can gain access right here to kick down that ladder. Once you kick down the ladder, up there is the crows that you can drop items and exchange them out for things such as twinkling titanite or other upgrade materials. Right there, I'm trying to remember what's on that thing in particular. I want to say it's a homeward bone on there. And you can also go through into the other tower, which is the one where we killed the Uchigatana user. And over there with him, we can get both the Firekeeper soul and the Firekeeper's set. So since we did pick up an item, for those curious, as you can see, 11 and 16. Decent dex weapon altogether. But now we're going to go briefly into a rundown of Firelink Shrine. So, this is of course your bonfire. Right here you have your Firekeeper. You're going to be leveling up through her, so she's actually rather important to the lore of the game as well. if we go this way, we have our basic merchant right here. She'll be here for the duration of the game. You can also pick up Ash as you go through the game, and as you pick up Ash, you give them to her. That will upgrade her stock.
Be sure.
We go back here. We have Andre the blacksmith. He can smith your weapons. In addition, you give him Estus shards that you find, and he will increase the number of Estus usages you can have. Now, there's a lot of stuff here as well that looks kind of empty. Right here is where our pyromancer trainer will go when we get him. Over here, we will have our sorcery trainer. If we go back here, all the way at the end back here is where the miracle trainer will be. And all these other NPCs we're going to discover as we play through the game. They are missable though, so you have to find them and recruit them, and then they'll come back to Firelink Shrine. Right here we will find the dark sorcery, otherwise known as hexes, in addition to teaching the dark pyromancies. Right here we will find the thief. You can send him out to scavenge items. He has some items that you can buy. And back in this area we have very important NPCs to the story. You'll find an apostle here that we can recruit, and he sells you basic sorceries early on. In addition, you can trade your humanity, and what I mean by that is you can trade 5 points of your humanity for 5 free levels. This does put a hollow status onto your character. Now, all the hollow status is going to do, to my knowledge, is affect aesthetics. In addition, there hasn't been enough testing really done with it to this point, but as you can see on the stats, you don't even see a hollow meter right now, and that's because we haven't traded that away. We haven't had the power drawn out, but we'll get to that when it happens. There's also an NPC that'll appear here when Yodel, I believe his name is, when he dies. She's actually important to the third ending of the game, and she basically replaces his role with selling you basic sorceries. Continuing on up, we have Hawkwood here. We can get a gesture from him.
Don't you?
We can see our thrones here. Yorm's throne, Abyss Watcher's throne, Lothric's throne. And this is the biggest throne that we care about. Over there we have the throne for the last dude. But this guy right here, Ludlith of Cortland, he's important because we're going to give him the transposing kiln, and then with that we'll be able to trade him boss souls to level up. What's this? Aldrich, that's who it was. As for other things you can do in Firelink Shrine, if you go up here, early on in the game this area will be empty. Later on though, Patches will actually show on up, and we have Patches. He'll appear right over here. As for the left side, I'd assume the Dark Moon woman that will occasionally appear here will show up over there, but I haven't. My first playthrough, I went and joined the basically Red Covenant, and then she got all but hurt, so she did not decide to stay. But my assumption would be that she takes that corner, since otherwise it ends up being empty. So either way, at this point, the first boss is down. We've gone through Firelink, and we're going to wrap up here. In the very next episode, it'll likely end up being a two-parter, but we're going to go through High Wall of Lothric. In one part, we're going to get through probably about 60% of it. In the second part, we'll go through the remainder of it in addition to the boss. So either way, guys, thanks for coming on by. Hope you are enjoying it so far, especially if you're new to the Souls franchise. I really do hope this series will be helpful to a lot of the people that are getting into Dark Souls 3 as their first Dark Souls. So hope you are all enjoying it so far, and we will see you with the next episode.